Take 3. Let's see if I'm going to be successful this time. It's Mercury retrograde. Everything will last more. So guys, it was my intention not to give you guidelines for, hey, you know, this is the general energy. But as I was shuffling and just trying to kind of really meditate on the cards and meditate on signs, well, 3 cards jumped out. So that clearly was to me a sign. I saw the sign. So we have Page of Pentacles, we have 8 of Cups, and we have Queen of Wands. So I'm not going to go in majority of the details other than telling you, well, that's really good news. Look at him. He has a map on the bottom. He kind of has a feeling where he wants to go and what he wants to accomplish. After all, this is a pentacle. And look at the tower where he is heading. He is also flipping a coin up in the air, so he is feeling lucky. Pentacle is basically omen of some maybe new financial future. And I know generally it's new year that we make new resolutions, but this seems to me that November will actually push us in that direction. And in fact, more so with 8 of Cups, look at her, she's leaving. Does she look like that she's missing something? Nope. Nope. Look at this. All of these cups are nice and solid over here. In fact, one of them is still steaming. She just felt, there's something missing. There's a particular spice. There's something that I really want, and I really want to go in that direction. So this is going to be honoring that kind of thing. And then where we are heading, whoa, ladies, if you're a lady, you will be on freaking fire. You will be setting your affairs, you'll be putting things in order, organizing, doing. It's going to get busy. This is very unusual for the end of the year in Northern Hemisphere, because we go, oh my god, it's 4 o'clock and it's dark outside, or oh my god, it's 9 o'clock in the morning and it's dark outside. It's one of those really hard days to get through, but not this time around. If you're a cat terror listener, you are going to be infused with energy. So Queen of Wands, if you're a guy, would mean that you're going to have a woman organizing you. Hey, just bend over, you might be slapped on your tushy. So no, I'm just kidding. Queen of Wands is a really good sign. It means we'll be willing to move further. So there were 3 cards. It was one after another, after another, jumping out. So what I really liked about that is that actually we do not have swords. Yes, I know I'm Aquarius, I'm a sword element, but we are going to do really okay without thinking too much, because analysis paralysis, maybe it lasted for a few months, but this means, hey, I know I have to do slow and steady. I maybe need to get a few more courses, but I'm getting there. I want to better myself, and then put all of things in motion. So before I start with your sign, let me just give you a really quick announcement, which is usually happening at this time of a year. And yes, this is that time of a year. I'm actually producing 3 times the material. So Mercury retrograde, 3 times the material. Well, what could go wrong? But if you guys are curious about the upcoming year, the fashion of the last 2 years, I'm going to do my annual taroscopes. I might shuffle things around a little bit. Generally, there is general info about the upcoming year in terms of numerology. We are entering a year number 4, but the most important thing, we are entering a completely new decade, right? So if you're curious about basically the upcoming year, if you have multiple plans that you want to implement in 2020, you're just not alone. So these predictions will help you a great deal. Of course, a personalized planning is also available, but this one here is now on pre-order. It is for $19.95 for one sign, and it is for $45 for all 12. So that way you can check your ascendant, you can check your moon sign, and yeah, you can just peek in somebody else's future for 2020. So take advantage of this price. So I'll be working on that during the month of November. Hopefully they'll be fully delivered by early December, and then the price will go up, significantly up. So guys, 2020 is very important year because it marks the beginning of that relationship between Jupiter and Saturn conjunction that initiates a 20-year cycle. Well, if this is something that you really take seriously, if you really want to push forward and have this additional kind of like tricks in your pocket, this is the way to go. So just click on the link, or you can also visit me on social media where I'll be advertising this for the next month to come. So, shall we start? Hello Scorpio, and welcome to your monthly. So if you go back and watch my shuffling, you will actually find out that Ace of Wands popped out, and then there were a few cards popping out, and I was thinking, oh, well, let's kind of like have one card for each category in my Celtic cross. But then I said no, there was a reason why they were jumping. So I kind of like pulled these three back out, and they were in this order. The first one was express your love. You know that I'm not necessarily looking in the bottom of these cards, but this is one that says go ahead and make the romantic gesture. That's not going to be toughy for you. Then the next one was pay attention to the red flags, but also codependency, which tells me that this is a healing process that probably is kind of like coming to fruition, because you're in your sign. When we are in our signs, we feel very powerful, but when we feel powerful, we also neglect certain things. So just let me give you a quick review, because you also have wedding. You guys take commitment very seriously, and I just really don't want you to end in a situation where things are not gelling properly. It's kind of like you're there for a reason. So we are going to look into that as well. So on November 18th, mark the date on your calendar, Mars is entering Scorpio. That's going to be toughy. Mars and Scorpio, remember the Tower card? That's kind of like when you see this Mars in Scorpio. Lots of crap can happen if foundation hasn't been built properly, or there are cracks in the foundation, just like I crack my ribs. It's going to be painful. It's going to, you might even get angry. Sometimes we express it that way, right? So it's going to be lots of sex, but it's going to be lots of fighting. So it's going to be some kind of confrontation, guys. That's clearly one of your Tower moments, but we will see also what we get in the cards. Then you have Wednesday, November 20th. Mercury retrograde ends. Ooh, this is your card showing up. It's kind of like lovely. Ooh, Death and Ten of Swords. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's going to be really interesting. Ten of Swords is the end of one phase, and it would kind of like make sense along this way. Pay attention to the red flags. Do not get suckered in anymore. And look at this, like we see this like full moon in Taurus, November 12th. That's going to be kind of like luxury period where you're going to be really celebrating and enjoying things that are going on. So let's see what we have here. And this is also your card, Judgment, over here. So your season is going to end November 22nd this month. And then I guess enters that weird state of Puccius. It's a little bit kind of like a few days before, but I usually go with Sagittarius because it kind of like makes more sense to me. And that means, ta-da, time to party kind of a thing. And Venus is entering Capricorn on November 25th, which is a really good news for you. So if you had that kind of like bruised ego or confrontation or something happen, I'm seeing that here as well in the cards, guys, then that kind of like Venus in Capricorn is going to allow you to have shift of perspective, and especially regarding romance. So it's going to be the time to mend relationship if you kind of like messed it up, because I see here these sixes. I do see that it's going to be some kind of sense of, let's call it victory, but this is also a soulmate-y feeling over here. And then you also have 4, and this is a 4, and this is a 4. So 4s are about stability. Again, back to that tower moment, which is kind of hiding in the plain sight, if you wish, kind of like where is Waldo moment. This is basically what's happening over here. Keep that in mind, that there is like some shift happening toward the end of the month. For the single ones of you, for the singletons, there are like some really, really good news. Look at this 4 of Wands. Somebody wants to solidify something. Somebody wants to go in a new direction. And kind of like what can we make out of things that we already have? That's like a proverbial 4 of Wands. It is going to be a really good time, guys. So clearly, let me kind of like put things in perspective. You know, I'm not the reader, go card by card and give you the information. That way I would just put a picture and go, you know, find it. Because try to find a combination that really works. I'd rather tell you what I see over here. I really love that I see this in the past. That is again talking about karma. This is like ruled with Pluto, and it is about, hey, you know what? I made some hard choices. You know, sometimes when you're offered easy way and luxurious way and hard way, and you don't know what's going to happen at the end of that tunnel, like you picked the box number A. Even though you know on some level, maybe I shouldn't. Well, you didn't do that. You picked the hard way. It was hard. You had to roll up your sleeves. You had to plow through something, through the weeds, I would say. Probably you got really, really kind of scratched in the process. But you're Scorpio, because these two cards that are your cards are mirroring each other. This is really telling me, job well done. Like, I mean, take a minute and pat yourself first on the right shoulder, then on the left, both masculine and feminine. There is kind of like that balancing of the forces. Maybe previously you have been blamed either that you're too emotional, or that you're too, let's say, abrupt, or I mean edgy. So there it is. It is time for you to kind of like sing the accolades and say, hey, yeah, I did a good job. Do not forget, we are also entering Mercury retrograde on the 31st of October, which I'm doing the reading prior to that. So you kind of like have some kind of like time to prepare yourself for this month. I do have to tell you, toward the end of the month, you will be really, really tired. It's going to be lots of new ideas. You will almost like be overwhelmed with the situation, everything that is happening, right? Maybe kind of like do some resting. Maybe kind of like try to sort things out. Put your broom aside and just say, hey, you know what? Even the witches need to kind of like take some nice and restful sleep. And a beauty sleep. And make sure you have a really good mask on it and good cream. Because it's also going to be a very kind of like beauty-like month. I also feel that it's going to be a month when, for the mothers over there and want to be mothers, it's going to be a glorious month. The Empress is really talking about these luxuries, especially this is valid for those those Scorpios who have some Taurus in their chart, because you're going to have this full moon in Taurus, right? And this is about luxury. Now, this is going to be very important. You know, please check my full moon meditation. I did release one last month. I have been preparing this forever. And then I realized it has to be done during full moon in Aries. So that's why the cycle is getting through, because each full moon kind of like has its purpose, right? So this one is about luxury. This one is about celebration of what you have accomplished. And this is basically confirmed because the Empress is basically that Venus, which is going to kind of like peak there on November 12th, but then it's going to revisit you on November 25th. Because I do really see that in this month there'll be lots of repositioning. Lots. I mean, look at these wands. Look at these wands. You have wands, and you have swords, right? So this is really telling me that the energy is really high. And I mean, hello, it is your birthday. Like, I mean, you are a sign that usually goes really deep, and you are kind of like, you can sit next to someone and feel them. You don't even need to touch them. You're going to feel that energy. I always find that Scorpios and Aquarians are very, very similar. They say, it's kind of like that loop. And that's kind of like what is happening. You sometimes go on our side. We sometimes go on your side. It feels like it's a weirdo land for me to kind of like swim in all these emotions and deep trenches and I see nothing. But then you have to clue into your intuition. So you're going to do both. You will be cluing your intuition, and that's what I said. Please do trust your intuition. You have here also the moon. And I really love the Six of Swords. You are fed up with certain things. And that is kind of connecting back to these jumpers over here. Pay attention to the red flags and codependency. Guys, sometimes we are very nice. We all have been there. In a relationship, somebody does a crappy thing and we are either biting our tongue or thinking kind of like, well, I just like, maybe it was just a bad time. You give an explanation to something that maybe you shouldn't be doing that, right? Especially the sign that went through stuff. And I feel that maybe you guys have been blamed from left and right. And hence, one of the lessons that you have learned is not to kind of like jump into conclusions and kind of like really quickly render something. That's why I see this resurrection. There is like something that has to stop in order for you to move in a new direction. Now, yeah, he is wounded, but he's not beaten. He knows who, he knows where, and he's determined to kind of like get there. It's very, very important. That card is about claiming who you are and knowing that, yeah, we are still going to have issues. Nobody's perfect. And there is going to be a question, can I live with this? You see, when I see codependency over here, like they are here talking about addictions. Addictions are affecting your romantic life. To me, codependency is more about, especially for you, it can get tricky, especially when we have this Mars, November 18th, when you're going to think everything was glorious, everything was fine, I have been doing very, very well, then, right? Mars is giving you like really weirdo feeling, and it's fire and you are water. So guess where we see fire and water? Steam. Steam evaporates really, really quickly. And also lava, hot, molten lava that kills everything in the process. So that's the power that you're going to have. So that's why when I see wands and I see that heat over here, right? So you have a 6 and you have 5. 5 to me always talks about positioning. Because look, all of them kind of like want to make an addition to the boiling pot, but they have to figure out who is adding what and how much. So that pretty much translates into our relationships, right? You just cannot go like, full on, right? So you kind of like really need to compromise, and this is actually a beauty because the other person modifies us. Like it's like a nice fine sandpaper, right? It kind of like removes these rough edges that we all have on some level at some point. Whether those rough edges are expressed bluntly, which Mars can help you do that, or passive aggressively, where you are like stewing and kind of like undermining certain things just because you kind of like really think this is a better way to do. So this to me is really talking about some kind of like sense of victory. And I really think this whole cluster kind of like initial kind of like thing over here is really talking about that you're moving in your direction. After all, there's a Page of Cups, it's a new love, and you might have lots of offers. Now guys, when this really talks about people who are already in a relationship, there's going to be adjustment. I really have to tell you that it's going to be something that on some level you started to realize, I'm on this road and I have been through that. I do really want you to be in my life. And that's what I said about being super nice. But you're going to say to yourself, no more, Jose. I've been down this road and I know how this story ends. But because you have been through it, now you have a better communication ability to express what you really want. For some of you, because Ace of Wands also jumped through it, it might be the old relationships bringing forward and it's kind of coming to play. And it almost is going to be like, holy moly, so much activity. I do not know how to handle it. You know how to handle it? Just be who you are. Enjoy your motherhood. If you're a man watching this, you know what this kind of could mean. You're going to meet that perfect woman, because maybe you have been meeting women who were like great in bed, or maybe if you're a woman, you have been just like, really proud about your bedroom kind of like abilities. But maybe you have also learned, I really need more, really. In order to like really paint this picture, there are like so many more elements, and I want it, and I want it, and I want it. You actually realize that maybe ingredient was missing. It almost like, if you're single, you actually will come out and you will probably meet different people, especially when we enter Sagittarian season and then you have your Venus in Capricorn. I would just say the adventure starts with this new moon in Sagittarius. That will be November 26th. So on November 27th, you're going to pull the entire experience of the entire month together. And that's basically when Neptune basically goes direct. So all I really want you to understand and take away with you, if you can, one thing from this monthly reading, given that we have this, and of course this is ending with wedding, make sure that you do not make horny decisions. All right? I said it, because that's where things can end up. Oh, everything is like blossoming, everything is fine. Make sure that you cross all your T's and dotted all your I's. It is going to be very, very important for time to come. And that's why maybe some time alone is going to be needed. Maybe you're fearing and hoping, well, I just want to be with this person because somebody is going to be so overwhelmingly interesting. Also, if you're single and looking for someone, I do have to tell you that you might actually meet someone who is completely from a different social group. Like when we go through Sagittarian season, there is like this urge to travel, and hello, this Mercury retrograde is still going to linger a little bit. But there is also, this amusement with strangers or strange things. So you can funnel it if you already have a partner by actually going and eating different foods and trying different things. So that can actually really work out. So dear Scorpio, I actually took one more card for you, but before I read this one for you, I'm really wondering if I should, you know what, let me clarify a few things. It's, after all, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, and happy belated to those who already celebrated. So I really want to actually see the significance of this shedding your skin. So let me see the death card, because you are showing up in immediate future. So almost like upon reading, viewing this, guys, there's something that is going to, there you go. We keep getting these things, and one of the thoughts that I had when I saw this combination was, oh my God, somebody's going to die. But that is not always literal death. It could be also that somebody died, meaning you finished relationship, you are closing quote unquote caskets. How appropriate for Halloween, because here we have widower. So who is a widower? Widower is someone who obviously been through quite a bit, but this dude over here, he actually did pull himself together, and he is coming to the grave. It says Mia Cara, right? My dear, right? So this means that mourning stage where you're devastated, where you're crying and screaming, and you really don't want to show your teary face to the public. It's kind of like behind you. He's putting that wreath on a grave in a cemetery, but even though he's still sad, and there was a loss of his wife, if we kind of like trust this inscription. He is telling about this path, and Scorpio is like known for that resurrection, right? So that is telling me, guys, that if you guys are in a relationship, it might be an issue. Be very careful with that Mars, because Mars can create lots of consequences. Again, Monday, November 18th, that's what's going to be. So there's like something about making something permanent, closing the doors in a kind of a permanent way. This could be end of love affair, it could be loss of a job, I don't know, some kind of like bad deal, or losing a friend, right? Simply this can be sadness, and this can be a little bit of feeling of regret, because remember, we are still going through Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde makes us question our decision. You're going to experience the duality of Gemini. I want this, no, I want this now, right? So, but this is also about sincerity, so just keep that in mind. I would also say, given that Mercury retrograde is here, that maybe you should watch the driving. It can sometimes signify the accidents, but you, my dear Scorpios, you are going to land on your feet. Even though I see that some of you might actually be even hospitalized or needing to lie down over there, so I want to see this. I know this is despair, and it is reversed, which is good, right? This despair, dude, is always really interesting to me, because if you look at the table, there is a picture of a woman. There are flowers, and interestingly enough, he has to hold himself to that chair to blow his brains out, right? So it's really telling me about anger, right? And indecision. Maybe there is somebody who has been disgraced or cheated, and saying well, I cannot show my face, right? I'm finally seeing this together. It can be about scandals. It can be about somebody being bitter, right? So, but this one reversed. So something that maybe is heading that way, maybe somebody's going to have a freak out moment, or some kind of jealous moment. That moment will be interrupted, right? Because you might actually just shut somebody down, and you might say, no, not it, because that's almost like some kind of obstacle, of jealousy. It could be envy as well, guys, keep that in mind. But this card urges you to consider the causes, what has happened, instead of acting out on these emotions. You actually will be able to do that, right? So maybe this is signaling to end any reckless or irrational behaviors. And you generally, Scorpio, has this twins. I have a doggy Scorpio and I have a kitty Scorpio. So the lovely path, really strong fixed sign. It's pulling things together, and you know that you have to do it for the others. But oh my God, if somebody messes with your friends, your girlfriends, your boyfriends, watch it, a thing, right? So you need to review that, because this goes back to this codependency and red flags. That probably should trigger you and say, well, I need to pull myself a little bit aside and see, why am I triggered with this? Because you really want to get to the position where you're not triggered, right? So continue life with courage, guys. Think through it and tackle problems, possibly with the help of a loved one. I really think that's going to probably be very prominent around November 4th, but it could be anything, plus minus 3-4 days, some a stuff. So also be aware of any dark rituals, because that will actually explode in your face. So hey, you have been warned. There are lots of things here on the table. Do not overreact, because it can cost you losing someone who you really shouldn't lose. So, okay, let me read you this card that I got. And this card you got is Moonlight. I absolutely love the drawing on this card. It's so pretty. So let me read it for you. Moonlight beckons. Come and trust your intuition to lead you into places that may not seem logical. Your hunches will be right on target. Resist second-guessing yourself, for your alternative perception is especially sharp right now. You can see beyond the surface of things and truly read between the lines. This is a good time to use oracle cards or other systems of divination to gain information. Hey, or contact cattarot.ca. Sorry, I digressed. Remember that the language of intuition is a symbolic one. It comes subtly through a hunch, a tingling, a clear sound, or an animal or object crossing your path. Spirit is sending you messages to help you now. Success is yours if you follow the signs. So guys, crank up that volume on your intuition to the maximum and sail bravely through your month. I wish you all the best. You know where to contact me, cattarot.ca. My info is down in there. Please pre-order your annual taroscopes. They're like fantastic. They're about hour and a half, sometimes I even go longer than that, and they really give you a nice format how to follow the year. So you know what, you'll be ahead of people by just simply jumping through, hey, you know what, there is something I need to watch on the road and I can avert it. So be clever. You are clever. I don't really need to stress out. So my dear Scorpio, I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.